Hello, friends. Welcome to the Holistic Nutrition Roundtable. My name is Mira Desi, and I'm known as the ingredient guru. I talk about what's in what we eat, but I have some amazing colleagues who also talk about wonderful and fabulous things that have to do with our health and well-being. And so the four of us have come together to share with you information that will help you live your best, healthiest, happiest food life. So you've learned about me, and now I'm going to pass you over to Mary.
I'm Mary Collette Rogers, and I run a nonprofit called The New Kitchen, and we're all about meal making transformation by being new in the kitchen, new in our cooking, and new in the way that we think.
And next up, we have Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Bryson. I am board certified in holistic nutrition, a health coach, kids cooking instructor, and podcast host. I specialize in gut health, which is foundational to your overall health. And today I'm going to be talking about ways to eat healthy on a budget.
Yay! And Carrie, my dear.
Hi, I'm Carrie McClure. I specialize in grateful aging and healthy longevity, and I use the tools of nutrition, movement, and mindfulness to support our health span matching our lifespan. I'm here today to share some thoughts on mindful eating.
We are so delighted that you are here for today's roundtable. And so the way this works, we each take a few minutes to share about a topic near and dear to our heart. And then at the end, we are all just going to dive in and share thoughts and wisdom and information. And so I am delighted you are here. I hope you will stick with us, and let's get this roundtable started. So, as I mentioned, I'm the ingredient guru, and I really help people focus on what's in what we eat and why it matters. You know, unfortunately, we grow up in a food system that encourages us to feel like food is food and all calories are equal and it doesn't really matter what you eat. And the real thing is it couldn't be any further from the truth, because we need to not just feed our bodies, we need to nourish our bodies. And one of the ways that we do that is by making sure that we are getting real whole foods, and that the things that we're taking into our body are sustaining and supporting our body's ability to grow and maintain and sustain itself. So when it comes to the nutrition label, one of the things that I really like to point out to people is there's two parts to the nutrition label. So if you think you're reading it, I want to make sure you're reading the whole thing. And if you're not reading it, I really want to encourage you to start, because there's so much information there that can really help you be able to make healthy choices at the grocery store. So the first part is the nutrition panel, and that's, if people are reading the label, that's mostly what we look at. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment and break down some of the things that you need to be aware of when you look at the nutrition label. The most important part, however, is the ingredient panel. That's that part down below that sometimes has all those words, and it feels like it's very overwhelming to be looking at that. And I'll be honest, food producers make it hard to read. Sometimes it's gray text on a red background, or it's gray text on a pale background, or it's very tiny because there's a lot of words there. And really, we want to make sure that we are looking at the ingredients, at what's in what we eat. And if it's not real food, we want to put it back on the shelf. So let's go back up to the nutrition panel for a second, because there's a couple of things I really want you to be aware of. One is something called funny math. And funny math is where they can do things like say there are 0 grams of trans fat. And yet, if you look at the label, the ingredient panel down below, you'll see that there might be something like hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated ingredients, and those are trans fats. So how can a producer say there's none if it's clearly on the label? Well, if there is less than 0.5 grams per serving, they're allowed to say there's none. They do have to declare the ingredients though, and that's where reading that ingredient panel is really super important for you. The other thing that I like to point out to people is that serving size. That is determined by the food producer. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens is most of us don't pay attention to the serving size. We serve ourselves what's called a portion. We figure out how much we think we're going to eat. And we don't sit there and do all the math to figure out if what they're telling us is really true. So you might serve yourself 2 or 3 servings as your portion, but only calculate 1 serving as your intake. And I'll confess, I'm not a huge fan of calorie counting in the first place. I don't think it's the best way to really learn how to eat mindfully. And Carrie's definitely going to talk with us about that. But we have to remember that those numbers are there simply because the food producers have to put them there, not because we need them. Going back down to that ingredient panel, one of the things I really like to encourage people to pay attention to is to learn to understand all the different things that are on that ingredient panel. If you don't know what it is, put it back until you figure it out. Really, it'll be there the next time you come to the grocery store, I promise. And one of the biggest things I like to encourage people to start with is learn all the different names for sugar that you can. We are biologically programmed to seek out sugars, and food producers know this, so they put sugar in everything. It's in salad dressing, it's in ketchup, it's in crackers, and those aren't supposed to be sweet things. Well, if we're eating that much sugar in savory foods, how much do we need for something to be sweet? And one of the ways they disguise sugar on a label is by using lots of different kinds. I once saw a granola bar that had, I'm not kidding you, 7 different kinds of sugar in it. And they do that so that they don't have to put sugar as the #1 ingredient. So learn the different names for sugar and then be aware of reading the label. And if there's too many, put it back, because there are other things that are going to be a much tastier, much healthier way to get sugar in your diet. And then the last thing that I want to point out to you is that a lot of times when we go to the grocery store, there are food products that have no label on them. So what are you supposed to do? Well, one of the things that is really helpful is step by step to take the time to learn about these different foods. For example, when it comes to things like the dirty dozen, that's those 12 fruits and vegetables that need to be purchased organically in order to avoid a lot of pesticides. So we learn how to make that choice while we're standing in front of all those beautiful, fruits and vegetables that we're looking at. When it comes to animal products, learning to understand those things that are have no added hormones, no added antibiotics. If you're looking at a beautiful roast sitting in the butcher counter, you need to know where it was sourced from, that cow was raised without genetically modified food, without added hormones, without added antibiotics, all those things. And so learning how to make those choices is really important. And I want to just encourage everybody, you're going to hear a lot here today. The next biggest thing that you can do is just pick one thing you're going to focus on, start there, and then come back to this recording as many times as you need to keep going through and picking up more wisdom each time you go around and change your habits so that you can feed your family in a healthy, happy, loving way, and everybody is deeply nourished. All right. So that's me. That's my little roundup minute. And now I'm passing it over to Mary, who's got some great information for us, because we're going to take what's in the grocery store and bring it to the kitchen.
Thank you, Mira. Yeah, here I am in my kitchen. And I love listening to Mira on these things because, the ingredient listings and the nutrition facts label tell us so much about what we're eating. And it's good to hear Mira talk about this. But, one of the curious things I've noticed over my years is that as helpful as those ingredient listings are, I often find that people don't read them. And I know this because I've been teaching healthy meal making classes for over 30 years. And people would always come into class and they'd be bringing some new product that they found. And there'd be wonderful health claims on the front of the package. And they go, so Mary, this is a good thing to eat, right? And I would always give them the same answer. I'd say, read the ingredient listing to know what's in it. And they would always give me the same response. Do I have to? It's like holding their noses like this, some terribly odious task. And so I had the question after this has happened so many times, why is this happening? Why are we so reluctant to do something that would be so beneficial for our health? And I know there's probably a lot of listeners to this program who do read the ingredient labels, but I'm going to guess, based on my experiences, there's at least a few of us that don't read them or do it only reluctantly. So I've given this some thinking over the years, and I wanted to share that with you. Try it on, see if that can give you some helpful insights. And first, we have to acknowledge there's just a practical problem, and Mira's already alluded to this, is that ingredient listings are in the tiniest possible print. They're on funny backgrounds. They're also obscured in some remote part of the package, so it's not easy to find them. But despite that challenge, there's another problem I've noticed that's even bigger. And that has to do with our thinking, because that's a lot of what I'm about, is what thinking is, what's going on in our head that stops us from simply finding and reading the ingredient listing. Because yeah, it could be hard, it can be challenging, but it's totally doable, okay? And I think that having watched so many people, I think the answer to that is that we don't really want to know. We got a good idea that what's in that ingredient listing is not going to be something that we really want to eat. And yet this traps us in this uncomfortable trap, because while our brain is flashing some warning lights, don't eat that package of Cool Ranch Dorito chips or whatever it is, but our taste buds are screaming, yeah, go for it. And so, because we're humans, we do go for it and we eat it. And that sequence is not surprising, because it's exactly, we're acting exactly on cue. We did exactly what we're programmed to do. And it's a marketing game, right? We've got the marketers that are producing these food products that are so yummy and so cheap and so convenient. And then they hire marketers, and they're very clever marketers and psychologists and graphic artists that do their magic. And so it's just really easy to get hooked and not think about this. And the fact is that there are lots of documentaries and books on this, and we've read about this, we know about it. But in the moment when you're going to the vending machine and you're hungry, that kind of escapes you. But now that I'm talking about it and explaining that, you have a minute to reflect about it, you go, yeah, that's right. And you might be thinking too, it doesn't feel real good to be tricked into eating against your best interests. And so that icky feeling kind of begs another question for me, is that if we don't like getting tricked into eating against our own best self-interest, why do we keep doing it? And what I've noticed over my years in this field is that I think it's because there's a lack, we sense that there's a lack of viable options. Like say it's late morning, you didn't get a very good breakfast, you're starting to get really hungry, and you know that the vending machine down the hall has that package of Doritos, or it's grandma's cookies, that's what always caught me, or whatever it is in there. And so you go for it because you're starving and you think there's no options, or you're out shopping and it's getting near dinner time and you're really hungry and there's a Starbucks on the way home. You don't have anything better planned at home. So you go there, you think, well, what else could I do? We know, like Mira said, that we're supposed to be eating real whole foods. We know that would be better for us. And we know there's lots of recipes and quick ideas. In fact, I'm going to be one of my handouts. It's hard to see on this film, but it's the 10 top tips to get healthy meals on the table fast. So there's plenty of those. It doesn't take any great culinary skills. But the real problem, I think, lies deeper than these resources that are available to us. And that is, I'm going to say this and then I'll explain it. we can't make the eating equation work to make real whole foods a viable option. And so what does that mean? Well, let me go back then to the way we've been programmed in the marketing game. We've been led to believe that there's only 4 variables that you need to consider when you're considering a food choice. And that is that a food should be irresistibly tasty. It should be super easy and convenient. You shouldn't have to put any time and effort in. The food should be unbelievably cheap, and you deserve immediate gratification. If you're ever hungry, food should be there, ready and available to satisfy your hunger. No mess, no wait. So when you look at that example of the shopping trip, you're starving and you need food now. So look at the equation. There's, on the one hand, I could stop by Starbucks and immediately get a nice coffee drink and a pastry. Or I could go home where there's nothing in the fridge and nothing planned and somehow put together a decent meal. So which one of those is going to win? And I think we know what's going to win. And so here's the thing is, if we want to be successful in this healthy eating game in the healthy eating path, we need to know that the equation is bigger than those 4 variables that the food industry gives us. And that, of course, what we have to figure in is the health factor. It's a key missing piece that we never hear about in the mainstream advertisements and media. So some of the things we need to think about, like say we're weighing, do I really want that Doritos or should I have made a quick rice bowl? Well, we need to think about, well, what are those ingredients? Like Mira was saying, that's where you get that long list of ingredients. What do those do to your body if you eat them? What happens when you're eating corn chips that are made from corn that might be genetically modified or full of pesticides? And what happens if you don't get some good protein? And so you are going to be set up for a crash at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And what happens when your body doesn't get the nutrients that only fruits and vegetables can provide? What about the time and energy cost when you feel crappy after eating just a bag of Doritos for lunch? And then long term, and a lot of us don't like to think beyond today, but long term, think about it. If you do this day after day, there's going to be sickness, a lot or a little, the burdens of overweight, lack of energy, doctor's visits, hospital stays, maybe you miss work, you miss events, you miss this kind of things, and you might have just kind of a dreary life. So it's really important to maintain a keen awareness of how we're subjected continuously to tragically unbalanced propaganda, let's be honest. Our culture ads say nothing about the health factor. The cute advertisements that we see don't say anything about the health factor. It's just all about immediate gratification. So this circles back to that question we started with, is why don't we read those ingredient listings? Because, of course, we don't like to see what's going to be there. We know it's going to be there. So I hope that by what I've shared today is that you can appreciate the key information that our food culture isn't sharing with you. And that, in summary, is just that the packaged and processed foods are sickening us, if not killing us. And so then I hope you can start applying the full eating equation to more of your food choices. That can maybe be the one little thing you start doing, like Mira said. And it can be hard to quiet your taste buds long enough to make that consideration. But when you apply the full equation, I think you're going to find out that those packaged processed foods aren't automatic winners. When you weigh in the enormous health costs of poor health, then making a meal with those real whole foods doesn't look so costly at all. You think of a meal of a baked sweet potato and steamed broccoli and frying up a chicken breast or some tofu. How hard is that?
And that's such a great segue for us to be able to move over to Lauren, who's going to talk about healthy budgeting at the grocery store so that we don't fall into that trap of what is seen as inexpensive and attractive foods.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing, Mary. That was amazing. Lauren, help us learn, how can we do this and not blow the bank when we're going to the grocery store?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mira and Mary. So I'm going to talk about ways to eat healthy on a budget, because life is expensive and planning is key. So we all know the cost of groceries has been going up. According to the US Department of Agriculture, in 2022, prices for food at home rose by 11.4%, and food away from home rose by 7.7%. So we can't predict what will happen with grocery store prices in the future, but what we can do is really implement some simple, sustainable tools to support affordable nutrition. And I really like to emphasize that eating healthy on a budget does not mean you have to sacrifice taste or nutrient density. It just takes a little bit of planning. So I'm here to give you all some tangible tips that you can start implementing today to make some affordable, sustainable, delicious meals at home. So tip number one, do a pantry inventory, create a menu plan and a detailed shopping list. So this falls under the planning umbrella. So step one in eating healthy on a budget is getting your kitchen organized. You're going to want to take an inventory of what you have in your pantry, fridge, and freezer so you don't overbuy. The next part, creating a weekly menu plan, will give you some structure for the week, but also gives you some space to get creative. Think about how you want to use your leftovers. So if you like chicken, you could do a chicken soup one night, a chicken stir fry for lunch, and then chicken fajitas later in the week. And meal prepping will also mean that your fridge and pantry are stocked with some easy, healthy meals to have on hand. So after you do your pantry inventory and create your detailed shopping list. So this is going to be all the ingredients you're going to need based on your weekly meal plan, as well as some snacks to have on hand. So creating a list makes shopping easier, faster, and you will be less likely to make impulsive buys. I'm old school. I write it down on a piece of paper. You can also put it in your notes in your iPhone, whatever works best for you. Tip number two, this is my favorite tip: have a snack before you go shopping. Simple and powerful. Have a snack with a clean protein and a healthy fat to balance your blood sugar and prevent you from making some hangry impulsive buys. I have absolutely done that before. So an apple with nut butter, or hummus and some carrots, or a hard-boiled egg. Those are all really good options. Tip number three is eat seasonally. So this is basic supply and demand. When food is in season, it's grown more frequently and in larger quantities, meaning less cost to you. So for example, if you buy a watermelon in the middle of winter, it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be less nutrient dense, and it's also not going to taste as good, which is the kicker, compared to when you're buying a watermelon in the middle of summer in its peak season. Buying out of season produce is going to be more expensive since it has to be shipped from a further destination, which increases the cost of the item due to both transportation and storage costs. Also, if you eat seasonally, the food's going to taste better. It's going to have more nutrients, supports the environment. So eating seasonally is a tip I always love educating on, but really ties into affordable nutrition as well. Tip number four is shop local. So shop at your farmer's market or find a local farm. There's a national farmer's market directory. You can look up what's close to you. I always go to the farmer's market later, so 30 minutes before it closes, and produce can be sold at a discounted rate because the farmers want to move more product. Also, always carry cash at a farmer's market. You can sometimes get better deals. If you do not have a local farmer's market, many farms offer community-supported agriculture boxes. So these are CSAs. And a CSA is a way to buy products from local farms, usually in a bundle of veggies, fruit, or meat that you pay either a flat monthly or yearly fee for. So that will be more affordable in the long run. And then buying local also benefits the overall community and environment. Tip number five is make your own dressings, dips, and spreads. So this is an excellent way to save money, increase the nutrient density of your food, and also get you back in the kitchen. Mary will be very happy. Dips, dressings, and spreads. I love making salsas, pesto, chimichurri, hummus, and simple salad dressings are really, really they're really, really simple and easy. And I also love having them on hand in the fridge. Tip number 6, also, I mean, they're all my favorites. This is also one of my top favorites though. Grow your own food. So grow your own herbs, fruits, veggies is a really great way to save money and have nutrient dense food at your fingertips. Also, gardening has so many benefits outside of the nutrient density, and it just really benefits your overall health. So if you have the space, you can grow some fruit or veggies in your backyard. You can have a planter box. If you do not have space, you can start by growing some herbs on your windowsill in the kitchen. I know Trader Joe's, I always kind of go to them. They have some great starters already ready in the store for you to pick up. Tip number 7 is shop on the perimeter of the grocery store. So on the inside of the aisles, you typically find processed foods, cookies, chips, sodas, all those prepackaged foods with the labels that Mira wants you to read. And prepackaged foods will increase your grocery bill with little to no nutritional value. So on the perimeter of the grocery store, you will find your produce, dairy, meat, and other fresh items. Okay, I have 2 more. Number 8 is utilize the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. This is an excellent resource that suggests which produce to buy organic and which produce to buy conventional, created by the Environmental Working Group, a really great resource. So the Dirty Dozen is suggested to buy organic since it has a higher amount of pesticides, and the Clean 15 is okay to buy conventional because they have a lower amount of pesticides. Another great way to save money on produce. And tip number 8 is be mindful of food waste. So it's estimated that the United States wastes over 120 billion pounds of food each year. I had to reread that to make sure it was correct, but I was doing some research. 120 billion pounds of food each year. So what we can do is use leftover veggies, poultry or meat in soups or stews or salads. You can make broth with any leftover bones, beef bones, chicken bones, fish bones. Just make a really simple bone broth. You can put veggie scraps in a freezer bag, and when the freezer bag is full, you can make mineral broth. And then I love taking any fresh herbs or herbs that are about to go bad. You can chop them up, throw them in olive oil, and put them in an ice cube tray and freeze them and have them on hand for you to cook with. So these are just some simple tips. I have a whole lot more, but this is a really, really great place to start because I do know trying to eat healthy on a budget can be stressful. And I really like to give people simple, tangible tools that you can start implementing today. And happy cooking, everyone.
Good job.
Thank you, Lauren. That was amazing. So many wonderful tips. I can't wait for us to dive into all of that at the end.
Right.
But before we do, you know, we've heard about how to read labels and really understand what we're putting into our body. We've heard about being more mindful about our food choices and what we're doing in the kitchen. We've learned about how to budget, and now we're going to learn about how to mindfully really make a connection with our bodies and how we nourish them. Carrie, my dear, please enlighten us.
Oh, you're all amazing. It was so fun listening to everybody's thoughts about how to really help ourselves continue on this health and well-being path that we're all on. And I really love the definition of mindful. And when I think about the word mindful, I think about a pause. I talk a lot with clients about the power of the pause and taking a moment and taking a breath and allowing yourself to come to the present moment and hooking into your breathing, hooking into how your body feels in the moment, checking in with what thoughts are running through your mind in a non-judgmental way, and just allowing yourself to be present. And so I jotted down, knowing that we were going to have an opportunity for us to come together, I jotted down this thought that I'd like to kick this section off with. And it's inviting you to become aware of what you're consuming through all of your senses. So thinking about what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you hear, what you touch, what you think, and what you believe can all have a very profound effect on your body, mind, and spirit. So as we hook into that, over my own life journey and my own health and well-being journey, I've found these practices about mindful eating that have really worked for me personally. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to share some of those. So there are 7 of them. So I'll quickly go through them. And if one grabs you, focus on that one. And if something else doesn't really resonate with you, just let it go. So see if there's any one of these that kind of sticks with you as I go through these thoughts. So the first one, it happens to be my personal favorite. It's one of appreciating the food. So whenever I sit down to the table and I have a plate in front of me or a bowl of whatever it is, I take my hands and I just rest them around the outsides of the plate or the bowl. And I take a moment to pause and to internally thank all the hearts and hands that have brought this food to the table. And it's a lovely way of hooking in and becoming present and pausing and allowing your body to come into the parasympathetic mode, which is where the body rests and digests. So taking a pause and being grateful and thankful for the hearts and hands that have brought the food to the table. The second one is to pause and engage all of your senses. So this goes back to the first thought that I had. Really taking in how the food tastes. How does the food smell? What does it taste like when you're chewing it? What are the textures of the food? How does the food make you feel when you're eating it? And for me, this creates an eating experience rather than just eating food. So it becomes a whole body experience, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm sure we've all had experiences where we're in a hurry, we're going between meetings, we're taking a bite over the kitchen sink, or we're going through a drive-through, or we're eating on the run, or we're eating at our computers, or whatever it is. And there are those moments, granted, we all do it, no judgment, no, we all do it. It's what we do sometimes. But if we take a moment to really take in how it makes us feel, how it smells, how it tastes, it really becomes this whole experience of taking in the food and feeling how it really makes our bodies feel when we're eating and taking in that food. So number 3, small portion servings. So instead of using a dinner plate, in our home, we actually use side plates, or a plate that's less than 9 inches across, and we only fill the plate once. So it gives you this view of there's a lot of food because it's on a smaller plate, rather than having a really big plate with less food, which then you feel like I didn't get enough, and then you go back for seconds, or you fill that plate with maybe more food than what your body needs in that moment in time. So that's just another way of just being mindful again of how does it look? How does it smell? How does it taste? It's really hooking in with all of your senses, rather than the food just going in your mouth and you're chewing it, you're swallowing it, and you're moving on to the next thing. Number 4, chew, 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 and small bites. So savoring the experience, eating by slowing down through chewing small bites thoroughly. So really taking the time to chew your food, to feel it in your mouth, to really feel really good about the food that you are taking in. So number 5 kind of ties in with number 4, eat slowly. It takes about 20 minutes or so, give or take, before your brain lets your stomach know that you're full. So when I eat slowly, I notice that I'm more satisfied when I'm about 80% full. So it just gives the brain and stomach an opportunity to connect and know that your body's taking in food and you're taking in enough food. Number 6, skipping meals may not be helpful. I found that creating enough time to enjoy the food, as well as eating around the same time every day, helps to reduce that desire to overeat. And I know, again, we're all on full schedules, so we don't always have an opportunity to sit down at 6 o'clock every night and have dinner. But making some more mindful choices about the time of day that we're eating, and seeing if we can have a rhythm to that. It's kind of like sleeping, going to bed at the same time every night. That helps us with our sleeping patterns. So being able to have more regular eating patterns, see if that might help with the eating. And then number 7, tying in a lot to what Lauren was saying, eat soul food. I call it soul food. Seasonal, organic, unprocessed, local. Local food is much more, it's much more, I would say, full of nutrients because it's not traveling as far when we're eating locally, seasonally, when we're eating unprocessed, organic food. And doing that as much as availability and your budget will allow for. As Lauren had said, and I think we can all agree, it's expensive. So doing what you can, where you can, when you can is key. And so I'd like to leave you with a thought at the end of this segment. So I'd like to invite you to take a breath and take in this thought. Mindfulness is a pause. It's the space between reaction and response. That's where choice lives.
Oh my gosh, that was so lovely. Thank you. And thank you all. You are such brilliant brains. I'm really delighted about this. Now, for everybody watching, I have a confession to make. We did not actually discuss how we were going to handle this next part of the session, because this is the roundtable where we all dive into a conversation. So I guess what I'm going to ask is, does anybody have a burning thought that they need to address out of everything that we've heard before we all start taking turns and diving in? No burning thought. All right. So I'm going to start with one, because Lauren, when you said this, I was like, ooh, me. Because I wanted to share. I love that you encourage people to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. I think there are so many healthy, wonderful things there. There is one thing I'd like to add in that's so important. Grocery stores and food producers pay an awful lot of attention to how we shop. And there is this thing happening called product creep. And that's where they put things that don't belong there in a section. So for example, I don't know if anybody is seeing this at your grocery stores, but at my grocery store, there is now a huge salad dressing and salad fixing refrigerated case in the middle of the produce section, because they're trying to convince you that, oh, while you're buying salad, just buy the dressing here. Croutons, oh, you don't need to go to aisle 4 for those. You can get them right here. And they're hoping that because it's right there, you will not pay attention to what's in that package. And I promise you, there are things in that salad dressing, those croutons, those bacon bits or whatever that you don't want. So be aware of product creep, and don't think that just because it's in the perimeter that it's 100% healthy choices.
And Mira, I liked what you warned us about, the foods with no labels. When you first said that, I said, wait, what doesn't have a label? Because they're all required to. And it's those foods in the perimeter. And so yet another kind of warning against, the perimeter is good, but you got to think about those other factors that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how Mary, you talked about our taste buds are screaming for these things. Food producers work so hard to make food hyper palatable at this point. I get really mad. I don't know if any of you remember that old commercial for potato. I don't even remember which potato chip company it was. They were like, bet you can't eat just one. And the answer is no, you can't, because it's addictive. You know,
Right.
and they're robbing us of our ability to really connect with our food because they make it so hyper palatable.
You know, we all want to watch our anger outbursts and stuff, but sometimes I think anger can be a good thing. And I think when we think about the amount of money that's being poured into our sphere of of mentality to convince us to do things that aren't good for us, we should get a little angry and go, wait, do I really want to let that happen to me? So, power of mad on occasion.
Well, and I love how, Lauren, I love how you talk about, like farmers markets and CSAs and things like that, because I feel like if we connect more with the people who are actually producing our food, not making it, not production from a commercial standpoint, but growing it, that really helps us enjoy it more. And I also really love that you are encouraging people to start a garden, because I have to tell you, there's nothing I love more at the end of the day. If I'm making a salad or a dish or something, go out with my scissors in my little basket, and it's like, oh, a little onion, little basil, some parsley, maybe some sage today.
Absolutely. I always ask my clients, I say, when was the last time you talked to the person who grew your food?
Yeah.
And usually, they're like, I have no idea. So when you do go to the farmers markets, or when you do sign up for a CSA box, you get to actually have the conversations with the people who are growing your food, which is really special, both from a nutrition standpoint, but just from like a community and connection standpoint. And gardening. I'm a new gardener. I'm a rookie gardener. It's been fun. It's been humbling. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Especially in this, I'm in Northern California, so we had a very rainy winter and we're having a very hot summer, but getting your hands in the dirt. I have a podcast called Go Play in the Dirt, and playing in the dirt is one of my favorite things to do. So I love that. Carrie, I loved your topic of chewing. I think chewing is so important on a physiological level. You chew your food, you release digestive enzymes in your saliva, and it helps support your actual digestion. But also from a mindfulness perspective, we live in such a rushed culture. I feel like we forget to chew, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we multitask so much. And one of the things that I invite my clients to do, and they laugh at me, but then they stop and think about it, is I say, anytime you eat, sit down first. And they're like, wait, what? It's because sometimes we're on the run. And so we're eating on the
car
run.
does not count.
Yeah. And so it's kind of this whole idea of bringing it back to taking the food, and that's what you're doing. So in our home, no screens at the table. The screens not at the table. We're here to eat, have conversation, connect, pause, allow the body to become into parasympathetic mode so that the body can take in all of this fabulous nourishment and do its magic. And so really making the eating a single task of when we sit down, we're not doing all these other things at the same time. And it's amazing how that really brings you into the present moment, and you really do chew your food more, smell the food, look at the food, how beautiful it is, how this is going to nourish me, and really taking in all those positive senses as the food goes in.
And I love to encourage people to pay attention to what I call your BPM, your bites per mouthful.
That's very true.
Love it. So many of them, it's like, like I'll say, oh, can you track your BPM for me? And so I explain bites per mouthful. And I said, you don't have to do it for the entire meal, but for like the first 3, 4, 5 bites that you take, on average, how many chews are you getting? And they come back, they're like, 6. Is that good? I'm like, oh. So it really brings up a lot of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't think you're right. It's like chew a few times and swallow. It's like, how's your poor tummy supposed to? I mean, Lauren, you were talking about gut health. How are you supposed to do anything if you're sending it a lump of food instead of well masticated, enzyme rich, thing that we can
Absolutely.
break down further.
That's also it's free. Chewing is free. So
I love that.
horrible way to support your health.
And your teeth. I mean, our
Yes.
teeth are meant to chew. And
Yeah.
so if we're, taking in foods that we're just chewing a couple of times and swallowing, or taking in all liquid foods or whatever it is, we're not using our jaws, our teeth, and how does that affect our health and well-being as well? I wanted to come back to you, Mara, on your ingredients and reading the labels. And I had an interesting experience a long time ago where I buy the tinned tomatoes for various dishes. I just like to have, especially through the winter, I just like to have them just on hand if I need them. And I've been buying the same brand for a really long time and always been really happy with it and all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't think anything of it. And then one time I got them, I'm like, something's different. And so I went back and I read the label, and they had changed the ingredients in it. Same brand,
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
same stuff, but the ingredients have changed. So, even if we're used to buying the same brand and the same thing over and over and over again, it's good to check every once in a while to see if anything has changed in the ingredient list. Have you found that, Mira?
Yeah,
in your
I found it because a lot of times it happens when a company is sold. Like a lot of times we buy
Mergers and
products from those
acquisitions.
small, companies that are health conscious, and they sell out to one of the big companies. And you can almost bet within 3 to 4 months, the ingredient listing is going to change.
Got it.
And one of the things that I just saw in today's news, and I'm trying to look it up. So that's who it was. Rao, the tomato sauce brand,
Oh, wow.
just got purchased by Campbell. Anybody
Watch
want to guess how much it was
What I
worth?
buy?
Anybody want to guess how much the company was worth? $2.7 billion with a B dollars.
Oh,
And it's Campbell, who is one of the top 10 food companies globally. And it's really challenging because that whole thing of who owns your food is this web that's very difficult to break down. And Mary, you're so right. When a company buys another company, they don't change it right away, and they won't change the labeling. They're buying that on, they are buying Rao's consumer base, who is madly passionate about that particular brand and whatever. But if it's better for them, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, they will change the formulation to suit their needs.
Absolutely, to make it more profit. And I wanted to follow up something on the mindfulness too, because one of the things that I talk about a lot is just the value that we place on food and eating. And I look at it from the perspective of cooking, learning to value cooking. But, Carrie, when you talk about mindfulness, we're a country on the go all the time. And you wonder, with your mindfulness, I'm thinking about, taking time to notice the taste, notice the textures. And, when we're a country that doesn't value eating to begin with, what kind of a barrier are we up against to try to start being a little more mindful about it?
Hey, that's a great question. I think that's where I came up with the terminology, the power of the pause. Because it doesn't take a lot to become aware. It takes a moment to sit, to take a deep breath, to notice how you feel, check in with your breath. What are your thoughts? And then go from there. Takes a moment to do that. And then those moments happen throughout the day. So I call them like little mini meditation moments. And and you could even, like we all do, stay really hydrated. So drink a glass of water. Go outside, take a deep breath, move away from your computer, take a deep breath. Sit down for your dinner, placing your hands around the bowl, feeling a moment of gratitude for the hearts and hands that brought the food to the table. Takes a moment, and those moments lead into more moments. And when you add them all up in a day,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much that has an effect on our health and well-being. So that's a great point, Mary.
And maybe I would guess that as you get used to that, you start liking that feeling.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes easier to take that time.
Yeah.
And I also love how you talk, Mary, about really encouraging people to come back to the kitchen, because that's where our food starts for many of us in our home. Yes, we go somewhere else to buy it, but when it comes to what we're making, it starts in the kitchen. And if we're trying to rush through, that's how we've gotten so sidelined by food producers going, oh, we'll save you time. It's so convenient, just buy this box. And learning to reclaim that pleasure of a meal well made, or like Lauren says, making things to make meal prep easier. And I know we all talk about all of these things with our clients, that if you have healthy snacks and healthy sauces and healthy options on hand, it is not that much time to make a meal unless you're making like Thanksgiving dinner.
Mira, I wonder, I'm glad you read that point up, because that was something that came to me while I was listening to Carrie, when she talked about, paying attention to the sights and the smells and the, because I was going, oh, well, I feel like I do that when I'm cooking. Does that make sense that, the cooking primes you to be able to, then when you sit down, you've put all that energy into this meal. And yeah, it gets a little easier to be mindful about eating it then.
And so the next step is to get other people in the kitchen with you. Like I love when my grandson comes to visit, he's learning how to, in the beginning, it was like, okay, I scoop it and you dump it in kind of thing. But now he's actually getting better where he can measure things and stir things and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And then my husband, when he's home, loves to come in and he's my sous chef, it's like, hey, could you chop this? I mostly give him onions, I will confess. But no, he's great at chopping, slicing, dicing, mixing, helping. And then when we sit down for a meal together, it just feels like this continuation of that process, because we made that food together. And I love that.
Yeah, cooking for the five senses.
Yeah.
Something I love. When I teach kids cooking classes, like I have them smell the mint and taste it, and they're like, I can't hear it. I'm like, just use all your five senses. But it's it's a mindful practice, but getting all of that involved with the cooking process is really, it's special.
Yeah. It's cooking with love.
And I also wanted to just sort of reiterate something that you said, Lauren, about going to the farmer's market near the end of the day, because they generally don't want to have to pack it up and bring it home if they can at all help it. My best find ever was last year so I live in Texas, and there are these Fredericksburg peaches that are just unbelievably fabulous. And so they drive a truck hours to my farmer's market from Fredericksburg for the 3 weeks of the season. And so I went, it was, I don't know, 20 minutes before closing. And I noticed that while the guy's measuring peaches, any peach that's like a little dented or the skin is sliced or whatever, he put it in a separate box. And finally it was my turn. And I'm like, how much for the box of scratch and dents? And he was like, what? I'm like, well, I know you don't want to take them home. And he's like, let me call my boss. And he called his boss, and I got a bushel, which is 50 pounds of peaches, for $25.
Good thinking, Mira.
And I know. And it was amazing. First of all, my car smelled heavenly all the way. But I made canned peaches, peach jam. I made a peach syrup. I froze a bunch for baking. It was just great. And then one of the other things that I did, which I still have a tiny bit left, because this comes back to what you were talking about food waste. I took all the peels off of all, because you have to blanch peaches to peel them. The peel comes off very easily. I saved all of those peels and I dehydrated them and I ground them into a peach powder.
Ooh,
And I still have a
Interesting.
little
That's
peach powder left.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
I want to come to
Fabulous.
Texas. That sounds amazing.
Come on. You know what? That would be so much fun. Oh my gosh, we could all be in the same kitchen
That'd
together.
be amazing.
That would be
That'd be
so
super
fun.
fun.
I have a question for Lauren too, because I like how you talked about the seasonal eating, because I've been teaching and preaching on that for years and years. But one thing that, and one thing I think you kind of mentioned this, that environmentally, when we're shipping the blueberries from southern Chile in the winter, probably not so great for the environment. But also, I find that one of the things that people seem to struggle with is knowing what's in season. Just because different parts of the country, like Mira's in Texas, you're in California, I'm in Colorado, Carrie's up in Washington, I think,
Oregon.
and so we have different things that are in season. And then, like, so it's depending on where you are, what is local and seasonal kind of goes together. Do you have any hints on that?
Absolutely. That's a really great point, because what's in season in one state could be a little different than another.
Yeah.
I Google it, to be honest. I go to Google.
Appreciate the honesty.
Google seasonal produce. So I'm in Sonoma County, so Northern California, seasonal produce near me. But also, if you go to the grocery store, usually they put all the seasonal produce out front. So right now I'm starting to see tomatoes. I still see some stone fruit. I see some cucumbers. You could also get involved with your local farms to be like, hey, what are you growing? What's in season? So there's definitely a few different ways, but being sure you take into account your location, like Mary said, is really, really key. I love that point.
Well, and then like I live in Colorado, so, at least 8 to 9 months of the year, it's pretty barren out there. There's nothing growing. And so I kind of have to figure, being we're in Colorado, like sometimes we'll get stuff from Texas, Mexico, Arizona. And I mean, that's the only option, unless I do try to, freeze as much as I can, dry as much as I can things, which helps. But at a certain point, there just isn't anything here to buy in, like, say, the winter months. So I don't know, like, if you have anything further on that. But the snowbound.
The snowbound.
I will say, so I grew up in Connecticut and then we lived in Vermont for a long time.
Okay.
And one of the things that I know, when I was a kid, my mother is an amazing gardener. And one of the things that she did is we had cold frames. And so, especially in Colorado, you have fabulous sunshine, like 300 and something days a year. So I think a cold frame might be a really good option for you to
Well,
grow.
and actually, Mira, I just planted the cold weather crops for my cold frame yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's great.
So, and it's amazing that those really work. I mean, people will walk by on the sidewalk in front of my cold frames in January and go, "What are you doing?" And I'm picking, greens from the cold frame. So yeah, no, that's a great idea. Great idea. So.
And then you do have to be seasonal. So I live in Texas and right now we are having brutal, it's unbelievable. My vegetables that are growing in the shade are doing really well. And like, you're not supposed to be able to grow tomatoes in the shade. I have to down here. My ginger is so healthy and so happy. And I'm trying to talk my husband into putting up a shade cloth over our garden so we can shade the rest of it, because we had a great spring and I imagine we'll have a wonderful fall, but our summer has just been miserable here. And I know someone who has a greenhouse and they tried to grow things in it. And of course, this being Texas, that did not work very well. And so they're thinking they're actually going to use their greenhouse for winter crops here, which most of the time, the rest of the place in the country, people don't do that. The greenhouse pretty much sits empty in the winter. And I think hers is going to be really productive because it's Texas,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You have to, in addition to seasonal eating and seasonal sourcing, if you're going to grow things, you have to be seasonally observant as well.
Absolutely.
And I love, we're all four of us are talking about how to connect to our food more deeply, and Carrie, I would say based on, you know, what you were talking about, all of your senses with mindfulness and everything else. And Lauren, the work that you do with kids and everything, like all of that extends to the garden as well. Like if we're going to grow food, how much can we interact with and enjoy how pretty it looks, how beautiful it smells, how feathery the fronds feel, you know, all those kinds of things. And just, I think we've lost our appreciation for food, and yet it's such a crucial part of what nourishes us.
You know what I'm liking about what you're saying is just how empowering all this is that we don't have to just submit to an industrial food system that really doesn't care about our health. They care about profits and our health. And all the ideas that we're coming up with are ones that say, yeah, we can have an impact here.
And you don't have to do it all. Like that's the other thing. I love Lauren's suggestion to, you know, start with a few things in a pot. Like even if you grew, you know, 2 or 3 herbs, like those are insanely productive under the right circumstances. You could have a lot. And how much better would your meal be? I mean, I saw this cartoon once that said, I call it, what is it? I call it, what's for dinner in a kit. And it was herbs in olive oil, like a frozen ice cube, and a clove of garlic and some slices of onion. And seriously, you throw that in a pan and everybody comes running. They're like, what you making?
You know, Mira, I used to do cooking demonstrations and I would be at the front of the grocery store, they were health food stores, and I would just be sauteing onion and garlic. People would come in and it's like, my God, you think that you brought down manna from heaven, you know? Like, this is amazing. And it's like, and you know, anything you cooked, it was like I could have been cardboard. And I think people would have been thrilled over it. Oh, goodness. So,
well, ladies, this has been amazing. I have so enjoyed having this time with you. And for everybody who's listening, I want to let you know we are going to have a link down below where you can find everybody's website if you want to connect with us a little bit closer. And then we are going to have one link where each of us have some gift handouts for you. So you'll just go to that one link. You'll be able to get all the handouts. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. We would love to answer those for you, but we really want to each encourage you to remember that how we nourish and fuel our body helps us lead a happy, healthy life. Anybody else have any clothing thoughts they want to share?
absolutely, and make our best contribution to life. We can't do that if we're sick and not feeling good. So yeah, we want to all contribute to that better world.
Yeah. Blessings.
All right. Well, thank you all so much
you.
for joining us. Thank you, ladies,
Thank
for
you.
being here. Oh my gosh, this was
Absolutely.
amazing.
Thank you all.
Make it a healthy day, folks.